Good afternoon. We're here for our work session agenda of the Natrona County Commissioners, Tuesday, June 18th, 2024, 1:30 p.m. Our first item of business is our appointment with Jess Foshee with Live Oak Environmental, Lily Barkow, Groundwater Section Manager, Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality. The purpose is the carbon capture project. All right. Well, Mr. Foshee, would you like to proceed?
Sure. Yes, thank you very much, number one, for having us again. We met several months ago with Mr. Frill, and he'd offered for us to come back with a quorum of the commissioners to present the project. So we've got three different groups that will be speaking. Lily in support of the UIC Class 6 permitting efforts that we're undergoing currently, and then our business partner with Spiritus Technologies, Mindy Wren. Multi-phase approach to the project. I'll kind of give you a high-level overview on the screen of where we started, where we currently are within the business, and the efforts that we're going through with the Department of Environmental Quality on permitting. We have been working on Project Casper Carbon Storage Hub over the last probably 24 months from a permitting effort. The first ranch that we're working on is the Falls Ranch, just to the east of Casper, in which we started our due diligence from a geological aspect of where we may want to target injection zones for carbon dioxide storage. Within that conversation, obviously, there's a lot of technical diligence that is required. We met our business partner, Spiritus Technologies, in which Mindy will present, but they're a direct air capture company in which we remove CO2 from the atmosphere with a sorbent. Mindy will go into that from a technical aspect, but our first target injection well will be based around their technology, and the facility will be built out on the Falls Ranch, roughly a 500-acre position in which it's positioned itself against the north end or north side of Hat 6 Road and south of the interstate. So I'll take you into a little more depth of the diligence that is done, from an operational standpoint before we go into technical permitting with the Department of Environmental Quality. So the red outline you see is the ranch. I'll start working through a few of the layers that we've done here, but we bought a tremendous amount of technical data to be able to come in and start evaluating the formations for what we think would be good target storage areas. Within what you see in this representation, the black lines are 2D seismic that we've purchased and licensed and reprocessed. So that 2D is really a straight down evaluation of the formation below each of those lines. That is about 60 miles total. We were also able to purchase 2,164 square miles of interpretive 3D seismic that covers the project area. So with a combination of those two, a lot of well data, over 400 wells collected through the area. The thing with carbon capture that it's challenging is you want an area that has ample seismic data, but minimal wellbore penetrations in the storage reservoir. So that's exactly what we found in this location. So southern Powder River Basin, obviously, as we go north, the basin gets much deeper. Not any, except one formation that we're targeting being the Sundance, in which we've got one wellbore penetration in the entire area of review. Lily will probably speak a little about that and their role of how they support that. So this doesn't get too busy. I will show kind of just the progression of the work that was done around all of the seismic that we purchased, and then what led us to where we targeted the first well. So the Falls, Casper Carbon Capture is a wholly owned subsidiary of Live Oak Environmental. So as we permit the project, you'll hear Casper Carbon Capture. And that's what our paperwork going in with the Department of Environmental Quality right now will state. So with all the technical information that I showed previously, we landed on a well location just to the north of Hat 6 Road. So as you think about this project, we will be looking at, in our business, we're focused on the compression of the CO2 from an ambient phase or near no pressure at all. So the Spiritus Technology Group would pass clean carbon dioxide, 98+% pure, very minimal water content in which we would remove mechanically before compressing to what's called supercritical phase and then pumping into a storage reservoir. So supercritical goes into near liquid and remains in a liquid phase in the formation. So the geological work led us into where we would target the initial well location, and then we started looking at what the storage reservoir itself would accommodate over a 15-year period of target injection. So the blue outline represents a ramp-up volume with the Spiritus Technologies direct air capture project. They plan to capture 50,000 tons a year of CO2 per system that they deploy. Ultimately, we would like to get up to 1 million tons a year, which is going to take several years based upon how rapidly the technology develops. So direct air capture, and you may have followed recently, but it's very new all across the world. But the project that we're working on currently came out of, not to steal any of your thunder, Mindy, but Los Alamos National Labs, where they have a very high surface area sorbent that's able to absorb the CO2 from the atmosphere. It goes into, and I'm simplifying, that Mindy will go into further detail on, a water bath. It releases the CO2. We then capture that CO2, compress it into a liquid phase, and store it in the formation. With the blue outline that you see, that's what the plume size would be over a 15-year period. So our planning purposes, we ramped up each of 50,000 ton increments over a 15-year period. So 750,000 tons over 15 years is what the permit request would be. Lily, I'll pause right there and give you just a minute to speak around the permitting efforts and your support role before I go into the greater scope of the project and some of the additional areas that we're looking at.
The Water Quality Division, and we oversee the Class 6 permitting or the carbon sequestration wells. And so then that'll be my primary focus. Any other permitting, such as stormwater construction or the entire project itself, will go through other divisions here at DEQ, such as industrial siting, Water Quality Division, and possibly solid and hazardous waste. But the Class 6 permits, Wyoming received primacy to oversee the Class 6 permitting in 2020. And so these are very robust applications that we will review. Wyoming's been reviewing deep disposal injection well permits and overseeing those since 1983. So this kind of activity is not new to Wyoming and to the Water Quality Division. And so we have a process that's outlined. Once the application's received, Live Oak will be required to submit a notification to everyone with subsurface interests within 1 mile of that plume that Jeff had pointed out on his figure. We conduct a completeness and technical review of the project, of the application. We review things such as the site characterization, geology for faults, fractures, other items, supply wells, other groundwater related items in the area, any kind of corrective action and new plugging abandonment of any wells, oil and gas wells or anything that's in the area. We also require financial assurance in the amount of bonds and liability insurance. These bonds are fairly large. They go anywhere between $5 million and $50 million, depending on the project, and this is to cover the state and communities in the event that a company should walk away from a project. So there is protection to those communities that are there. We also hold a public notice and comment period that's 60 days once we decide a permit or an application is complete and we're looking to issue a draft permit. We also hold a hearing at the end of that period just to ensure that we're capturing all comments, questions, and concerns from the community. That's strictly just for the permit to construct, for them to go out and drill the well and collect additional information. So this is a pretty robust process as we move forward with it. So this is just a real brief introduction to the permitting process for Class 6. Once we have an application, I hope to come visit with you all and go a little bit more in detail and answer any other questions you might have on DEQ's process.
And then just on those permitting efforts, we've been meeting with Lily and her team over the last 2 years, keeping them apprised of, the geological work that we've been doing. But we will submit our first permit for this location this week. So we've finally gotten to the finish line. As Lily described, very extensive process to secure, to ensure groundwater security and everything that's involved in the injection of CO2. Larger scale, I'll kind of back out a little bit and show you the greater project area. We've continued leasing acreage to the north, and you'll see these 3 ranches that are now added into the location mix. We have currently under lease for pore space 94,880 acres. So looking to the northern properties, we have not done as much technical diligence on. The next location that we would proceed, just due to the geological work that we did, was the one that you see just north of the river. So would come down to the Casper carbon capture number 2, and then showing the injection volume that we've targeted there and an anticline structure that we found for trapping. So that would be the second one. We anticipate that permit probably 90 to 120 days behind this one. A lot of the technical work we have done to date does coincide with the same location, but there's still an entirely different permitting process. The wells are about 7 miles apart, entirely different permitting process in which Lily and her team would then help facilitate. Greater scale project, we look for acreage where we could take a contiguous position. Just from a permitting aspect, that's roughly 71,000 acres. It's almost contiguous except broken on the north end. So those properties we've really just started our technical diligence on. We've bought some seismic. We've got a lot more work to go in, and that one could be 6 to 8 months out before we're ready to start permitting additional wells on that acreage. But as you think about the project start and what we're working with the Spiritus group today, we would really zone into the location on the Falls Ranch, in which they would have a project area roughly, roughly in the purple area that is not highlighting for some reason. Let's go back. There we go. Roughly in the area just north of Hat 6 Road and south of the interstate. So don't know how familiar you are with that area, but we're going to make another site visit tomorrow. But it's actually in a depression between the two major thoroughways of Hat 6 and the interstate. So there's a good chance when Mindy shows the rendering, you'll see kind of what the landscape may look like. But there's a good chance it may not be seen by anyone. There is some housing in the general area, but thinking where this is located, between each of those major highways that are traveled, there may be some, land that's seen from each of those, but expected at this point, it kind of looks like a tank battery that you would see on the landscape currently at the Brooks Ranch field. So Mindy has some renderings of what that may look like that we can go through in a second.
Jess, if I can, we're seeing some interesting information. We appreciate that. Typically, we have a PowerPoint or this kind of information also presented to our administrative assistant so that we have a public record of it. Are you going to be able to provide that?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. I can pull all of this out of this program and put it into a PowerPoint.
I think that'll be great.
Yep.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Not a problem. All right, I think unless you have any questions just around, the project area. So total is each of those ranches put together is 161,000 acres. We've leased just under 95,000 of that for pore space storage. We're working through the surface lease with the Spiritus team right now on, how their surface would be leased from the Falls Ranch. Meeting with Mr. Mason tomorrow to talk through some of that stuff. But at this point, I think I'll pause. We've got about 15 minutes left. Won't give Minnie plenty of time to kind of talk through her project piece. Any questions on the sequestration? So if you think about it, Spiritus is the provider of the CO2 through their capture technology. We take it from the gaseous phase at near zero pressure and compress it all the way to 1,430 psi for injection at the wellhead. So we would be the more localized wellhead type operator that you're used to seeing, and Spiritus would be the technology partner that we have.
Commissioner North.
Yes, sir.
What depth are you looking at as far
this
as your reinjection?
6,300 feet, also like right in that area.
6,000,
63, yes, sir.
6,300. Okay.
Yeah. And the structure gets deeper the further north that we go into the basin. So some of those could be, in the 9,000 foot range, but that's a lot of the work that we're still doing right now.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Commissioner Laird.
This is a hypothetical question. What could go wrong? It's 2 points. What could go wrong and why would a company walk away from this?
Yeah. And Lily, I will ask for your support, but, breach into an untargeted reservoir is what could go wrong. So similar to the challenges that may have like in a frac situation, we're well below frac gradient pressures of injection, but that's what our job is to do, is to have enough technical information to provide to Lily and her team to show that we have a, several hundred foot confining zone above the target formation, several hundred feet of target injection zone, and then several hundred feet target of confinement below the injection zone. So those are all the things that go into the permit. And Lily, I'll let you speak on that, on maybe the evaluation process, but go ahead. Yes, sir.
What kind of damage would that do if that happened?
It'd be carbon dioxide leaking into a non-targeted formation. So we're well below any of the aquifers that are targeted. We've got, a very deep aquifer under us. CO2 is buoyant, so it migrates to the top of the structure. So any CO2 migrating into, an aquifer potentially would be the bonding that Lily is required for us to come in and then remediate any aquifer that it may leak into.
And part of the permitting process is also evaluating remediation for worst case scenarios. So a lot of what, the worst case scenarios you're asking about are in the permit with remediation on top of that.
So under what circumstances would a company walk away from that? That was mentioned earlier.
We would not, due to the bonding that we're looking at right now for post-injection site care. It's called PISC program, with all the monitoring wells. So Lily may can touch on the monitoring, but we monitor above the injection zone, below the injection zone, within the injection zone, outside of the plume. Several monitoring wells give us indications that we would have potential issues like you've described before they could potentially happen. We've also got surface monitoring planned into the permitting, where over every day we can ping the formation and watch the plume extent move. So technology that's rapidly improving around the space is what we plan to put into our monitoring systems to ensure that we're seeing any potential issues before they occur.
Do you know what the amount of your bonding is going to be?
Just in the PISC plan itself, it's $33 million. There's some things that we're still having questions with the DEQ, but probably in that $33 to $35 million range.
Thank you.
Are you done, Dallas?
Yes.
Okay. Just a couple of questions real quick. Is that the maximum extent of your plume over how many years?
15 years, yes, sir. Ramping up in 50,000 ton increments each year. So 50,000 the first year, 100,000 injection the second year, 150 the third year, and so on.
Okay, how are you getting the material, how are you getting it to that location, to the injection site?
It would come from, essentially their direct air capture farm is going to be built in this general area. We would build the initial sites closest to the wellhead. So it's what I consider a flow line moving from compression to the wellhead itself. So on our piece of the business, all you'll see is a wellhead outside of a compressor building, and then the DAC farm that we'll show a rendering of here shortly.
Okay, and it's just a straight vertical.
Straight vertical well, yes, sir.
Is there any consideration to any of the landowners where the plume goes beyond the boundary?
That there's a Wyoming state statute that as long as 80% of the plume stays on the leased property, that there's no pooling required to bring the other landowners in.
That's all I got.
And just on the well piece, and real quick operationally, we expect the vast majority of the workforce to come from Casper. We're drilling basically an oil well. We've got compressor systems. The only thing that may not come locally from the area is some of the exotic metallurgy required in the piping, chrome 13, chrome 25, that, may come from other areas. But long-term, we anticipate in our project 15 to 20 people to manage the compression facility. And then you think about kind of a hub and spoke distribution. So compression would go to independent wells just through flow lines.
Sorry. One more. With that extra activity out there and whatnot, that road sometimes isn't the best condition. Have you talked to the state about
We not
having
yet.
any
Yeah,
commercial traffic over that?
we've got to have a DOT traffic study performed. So that's something that's on our list as the permitting exercise, goes through its steps.
All right, thanks.
What formation are you targeting?
The Sundance,
Sundance? I know you said that, I just was taking other
Yes, no
information
problem.
down at the same time, so, okay.
and just time check, we've got about 9 minutes. Lily, was there anything you wanted to add on any of the comments?
No, you covered that all very well. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, I'll switch to the Spiritus presentation unless you guys have any questions here.
Commissioner, thank you so much for meeting with us and giving us the opportunity to present here. Super excited. So my name is Mindy Ren. I'll give a quick high-level overview about the project.
Mindy, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We've had to deal with this before. I see the word confidential on your PowerPoint. This is a public meeting and we can't necessarily honor that. So I need you just to be aware that it's part of the public record if it's displayed up here.
Okay, yeah, I'll remove that.
Oh, okay. I just want you to be aware. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so Spiritus is a carbon removal company specializing in direct air capture. The company is funded by Charles and Matt in 2021, so roughly 3 years ago, and it's led by Matt and John with deep knowledge from Los Alamos National Lab. My background is in FEED and EPC project execution. I previously have worked with ExxonMobil, Tesla, and Meta. So that's my background. Then we also have Dan, who will be responsible for the plan design and execution strategies moving forward. So Spiritus' first project, Ultra One, is expected to be located roughly 10 miles southeast of Casper. So this first block is expected to produce or capture 50,000 metric tons of CO2 per year. Down the road, we expect to replicate this block and eventually be able to capture 1 megatons per year. So looking at some of the high-level utility demands, energy, we estimated 10 megawatts for the first block. And the water usage, we are doing the early design right now, roughly 200 to 500 gallons per minute. That's what we are looking at right now. And looking at the land use, the first block, we are estimating 16 to 30 acres. But down the road, 20 blocks is going to be asking for 500 acres in total. So this project is going to follow the traditional oil and gas project execution plan. So from FEED to EPC to commissioning, startup, etc. So looking at the schedule, we target to break ground, commence early works third quarter, fourth quarter this year, with first quarter and second year 2025, spring of next year to commence the main construction efforts for the processing units. Target to complete within 1 year, so that's end of 2025, and the commissioning and startup 2026. All right, just a quick status update on where we are getting the utilities, etc. So the initial block, we are going to get the power from the grid. We are talking with the Rocky Mountains. We're going to have another meeting tomorrow looking at the routes and options. Water, we are doing the impact study with the city. Primary plan is to get the water from the city and maybe supplemental from the on-site well if needed. Down the road, we expect to implement renewable projects on site, either solar or wind. Right now, we are in early discussions with the developers. So looking at inside the plant, right now we have completed the feed front-end engineering. So process flow diagram, which you guys have saw it earlier, heat and material balance, equipment list, baseline process descriptions, all that have been completed. Right now, we are working with the vendor to understand the lead times and the quotes, etc. At this point, we have also received 2 proposals from Tier 1 global EPC firms. We are evaluating those, target to get it awarded in next couple of weeks. As I mentioned earlier, one of the major construction efforts we will be doing this year is to commence the site works and also to support the mobilization in 2025. So overall, we are very excited coming to Natrona County and look forward to collaborating with you all to kick off the project.
Did you have a rendering?
I do.
I'll include, I'll have to pull it up. I'll include the rendering in the package, but their system, it essentially looks like a stock tank. So vertical system that has the fruit, which is what they call their sorbent, and it rotates through trays and it comes in for the water bath. So I can provide that just as a snapshot so you can see what the landscape will look like. 4 minutes early. Any questions?
Commissioners, questions?
So let's say a plume gets loose and floats over Casper, what kind of damage can that do to people?
So we do a dissipation study on what that may, entail. But the volumes that you're talking about, it's, CO2 is in the atmosphere right now in the 400 part per million range. 98%, obviously is much higher than that. Dissipation rate is extremely high. We would be able to provide results from that study as to how far of an impacted area that may be with these type of rates, but we wouldn't expect anything at this point to leave property.
Has it ever happened before?
There was a release with Denbury Resources in Satarsha, Mississippi, in which one of their CO2 lines ruptured. Not due to internal corrosion, it was due to a washout essentially in the pipeline structure where the line bent. But there was a community there evacuated from, and it was in the community where the rupture happened. We plan to have all our safety controls. All of this will be extremely automated with, online and inline monitoring. So we would hopefully know anything that is going to cause a problem before.
Was anybody injured or killed in that?
I don't know the total details on that. I can provide some, link information.
So what would the concentration have been? 40,000 ppl or what?
Oh, no, it's, it's near pure CO2, so 98+% pure CO2.
I see. Thank you.
Have you been in contact yet with our emergency services, Stacy? At what point do you work with our county departments to go over concerns they might have?
Those are in the upcoming months. So the permitting process, Lily may be able to speak later, but that could take up to 12 months just from the evaluation. So all the things that we're talking about, infrastructure and energy planning, those are all starting now and trying to get, in line with the permitting. So those emergency response teams, we have an emergency response plan that is in the permit application itself. So glad to provide, that once it's approved by the DEQ, but we would work hand in hand with emergency responders to know how to respond to a potential issue should it occur.
Good. I should make a public statement that our ranch owns about 5 acres of land within that, just on the north side of your, and it's part of the Plume area. I don't know if you're aware of Coal Creek Sheep Company.
Yes, sir.
That's our family's ranch. And then we're the grazing lessee, or the lessee, I guess, of the remainder of that property as you go back on the north side of the Has 6 Road, and I guess on the south side too, closer to Casper for a little while. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, sir. We just had gone with property boundaries on the Fall Ranch for that evaluation.
All right.
Be glad to pick that conversation up however I need to.
We probably should, since you showed the plume as going over this 5 acres. I'd like to have a conversation with you, and I need to determine on advice of counsel if I have some sort of conflict that would indicate that I should recuse myself. But anyway, I'd like to have that conversation with you and our counsel. Thanks. Any other questions? I think we've got about another minute.
Just one quick comment. It says here that there were at least 45 people injured in that escape of that gas in Mississippi.
I don't know the details on that.
It says, the headline is that U.S. is expanding CO2 pipelines. One poison town wants you to know its story. That's on, anybody wants to see that, they can Google that. Kind of frightening in a way. Thank you.
We plan to be able to address it.
Very good. Well, thanks for your presentation today. I think direct carbon capture is a really interesting, idea, and it'd be great to see it in the right-sided location to be occurring in our county and in our state. So, are you guys working on projects in other counties in the state? If so, okay. All right. Great. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, sir.
I don't want to tell you that. Shouldn't.
Our next item is 2 o'clock appointment with Lita Podgman, our Deputy County Attorney, Randy Ray, Crowley, and Fleck. Purpose, Resolution 41-24, to enlarge the boundaries of 33 Mile Improvement and Service District. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Chair and Commissioners. I do not have a cool PowerPoint, but I do have Mr. Randy Ree from Crawley and Fleck in their Cheyenne office.
That's correct, yes.
And I have been working with him on a petition to enlarge the 33-mile road improvement and service district, as well as the resolution we presented, and I do believe his clients are here as well. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you very much, Chairman, County Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to submit this petition to you guys for consideration. My clients, Dustin and Jessica Reynolds, has purchased property over immediately adjacent to the 33-mile improvement and service district, just to the south of it in 2020, and have since built a residence on it and have moved in and reside on that property, the northernmost side of the property, since July of 2022. And ever since they have moved into the house, they have been hauling in water on a weekly basis for household and domestic use purposes. They have gone through the process of working with the board of directors at the 33-mile improvement and service district to go through the proper steps in terms of enlarging the service district so that they could receive water taps at their residence, and have worked through with council through all of the different steps of getting approval with the county assessor, the county clerk, the Department of Revenue, as well as the Central Wyoming Regional Water System Joint Powers Board, all granting approval for the enlargement in order to get water. So we have presented our petition to the county commissioners and would ask that you guys, that the commissioners approve our petition.
Commissioner North.
Just confirmation, I sit on regional water, and we have had that, and I know that's been approved all the way across as far as expanding that area. And we're working on the map expansion right now, but that's all been submitted, so.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner North.
Just briefly, our resolution that's been proposed is that the proposed expansion to the district would serve the public convenience and necessity in the area. Help us understand better how it would serve the public convenience and necessity in the area.
Well, the 33-mile improvement and service district provides water to all residents, or to residents within the boundaries of the district. And by enlarging the district, it's able to provide fresh water to to my clients for domestic and household purposes, which would further the scope of what the 33-mile roads improvement and service district duty to the public would be.
Commissioner North, do you have anything to add to that in terms of what regional looked at and why it decided to approve this?
This particular area was attached to the current service district, and it was just outside. It was just a small portion that was just outside of it. And basically, they were hoping that they could get domestic water brought into their residence, and it wouldn't affect any of the rest of that service district. And so regional didn't have any problem with that at all. And so that's why we supported doing that.
If I might add, there is a total amount of water that is that the service district has quote unquote rights to or taps to, and currently the district has not exceeded and has not reached their total capacity of taps, making it available for domestic use. And with discussions with the state engineer, we understand that this wouldn't require a re-adjudication of Central Wyoming Regional water right or anything of that nature. It would just be an expansion of their service area map.
Yeah, the only thing we had to do is change the service district map to include this. That's the only thing we had to do as far as regional goes.
Yep.
Did
Oh,
did
I
you
didn't set that
commissioners
up.
have? Commissioner Laird?
Will this be of any cost to any of the other residents?
No, all the cost is borne on my clients in terms of being included into the improvement and service district, and all construction costs are again borne by my clients, and as well as all the water costs.
Has any of the neighbors complained about doing this at all?
Not to my knowledge, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Any
And-
other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. or Commissioner Laird, and I'm sure you saw this, but the board did approve this as well. I'm not sure if, did anyone object or dissent
No,
during the
there was-
board meeting?
Thank you. There was no objection at the board meetings.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to remind the chair, this is on the consent agenda tonight.
Yes, I understand that.
Okay.
But before we can sign off
I didn't
on it,
want to
we need this
forget.
background. No, I'm aware of that. Thank you. Any other questions? Anything else from you or your client?
No, I don't believe so.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Our next appointment is with our county attorney for the purposes of a legal update and a resolution 4324 initiating the process to establish County Road 505 as a county highway.
Okay, Commissioners, with respect to a legal update, I don't have a whole lot to update you on. The main item from me on the resolution, or on the meeting for this evening, is Resolution 43-24. There is a Resolution 3824-A that was mistakenly approved at our last meeting, but the publication in the newspaper indicated that that was going to be considered today. So that's why that resolution is on there, just for your information. And then I guess just moving right into Resolution 43-24, that's on the consent agenda for this evening. This has been placed on the agenda because it's come to the attention of the county that the county has long maintained and named Circle Drive on Casper Mountain County Road 505 as a county road, but it does not appear, going back through the land records, that it was ever formally established according to the statutory processes that it should have been. So it is our recommendation that you approve this resolution tonight. It's just basically setting forth the county's intention to initiate the road through the process of prescription or adverse possession. That process will include the county having a survey and a plat of the proposed road completed, filing that survey and plat, and then publishing a notice of its intent to establish this road. It would set a deadline for objections to anyone that has an interest in the lands over which the land or the road goes, and set a hearing date. We would recommend that we conduct a contested case hearing with a court reporter and a hearing officer. And then at that point, the county commissioners could take testimony as to the history of the road and determine whether or not the use of the road indeed fits within the legal definition of adverse possession. So for the required statutory period of 10 years, and whether the county's control and maintenance of the road rises to the level that it's hostile and notorious to the landowners along the route of the road. Notice to all the landowners will be of these proceedings, and a hearing date will be sent through certified mail. And then at the end of that, the commissioners, if they decide to establish it through this process, they'll issue what I would presume to be findings of fact, conclusions of law. And if anyone objects or would like to appeal that decision, they have that ability to do that through to district court. So that is, in a nutshell, the process that we're asking for you to initiate this evening. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, are there any questions as to the form of the resolution 43-24? I don't think we have any questions on the resolution, and I'm not aware of any other questions we need to go over now.
Okay.
All right.
And then since I sped really quick through and the other update, are there any questions of anything else we've been working on for you you want us to touch base on today?
We're going to be visiting with Mr. City Manager Napier. We're not going to be talking about the land swap today. Are there any updates, though, with respect to the land swap that involves the numerous county-owned parcels?
Not really an update. I did receive feedback from our planning consultant, Mr. Gustafson, so I can get that to you, and you can see what feedback he had about the proposed parcels. Still just working through with Mr. Nelson with the city on an MOU regarding the potential land swap, and hoping to get this done hopefully by the end of the year.
Good. And my understanding or recollection is that we are in the process of publishing for or soliciting bids for that saddle string kind of remnant parcel
We are.
on the west side of town.
That is correct.
Any other questions for council with respect to other legal matters? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we don't have a roundtable discussion on the agenda, but I think we were concerned we might not have time. I think we do have some time for that. So I think we'll move into Commissioner Roundtable. The city manager is scheduled to be here at 2:40, and I don't see him in the audience now. So Commissioner Laird, would you like to start with any roundtable discussion items?
So, of course, I always like to settle cases before you have to try them. And this issue with the area on the mountain that's under consideration now, I would hope that that could be settled in some way, but apparently not. But there always is a way if people look into it deeply enough. I'm a little concerned about the CO2 gas issue. One of the things I found out is that if that gets a little overwhelming, your car won't start. And that's a big issue. That's what happened to those people down in Mississippi. And I don't know what else to say about it because it's pretty close to our town. From what I could see from that map that they had. And, you know, sometimes these guys only tell you what they want to tell you, and then they either can't remember or didn't know the information as to how bad the problem was in Mississippi, but it's pretty bad. And people need to be informed of what might be happening to them. And if they don't know what's happening to them, it's a dangerous situation because it's invisible. So I suppose we have some duty at some point in time when this thing gets rolling to advise our people in this county how that could affect them without them even, because you can't smell it, you can't see it. But there are a lot of symptoms that you start feeling, and one of them, that maybe before it gets you, it gets your car. So you're sitting out there trying to start your car to get out of there, and you can't get out of there. So I'm always worried about these companies that come in and want to do this because they do care about one thing, and that's money. And if it was a situation that was very safe, they wouldn't have to be posting big $30 million and $50 million bonds. So it's just something I'm going to keep on my radar that concerns me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner North?
We've been working on the Central Wyoming Shooting Complex proposal for quite a while, and we submitted all that, and we found out late last week that we had made it in the top four. Those top four are Gillette, Cody, Cheyenne, and Casper. So we will be presenting our presentation to the commission next Monday and Tuesday, and we'll hopefully be successful. That's one of those things you just never know. We did the best job we could. We got everything put together really well, and we'll see where it falls. But I'm happy that we made it made the cutoff point, and at least moving forward right now. So.
Commissioner North, last week, visited yesterday. We didn't have a time for the presentation established. Is that still the case?
I don't have an exact time on Monday yet. I'll know something. Hopefully we'll know something here within the next day or two. Just exactly what time that will be on Monday.
Would it be useful? Is the commission here, or is it a Zoom kind of thing?
No, it's going to be at the Oil and Gas Commission building. I think for support, I think it would be great to have everybody show up if we're available. I'll see what I can. I've been trying to get the exact time pinpointed down, but we just haven't had anything yet as far as what that specific time was.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Friel?
Just two things tonight. CNFR obviously broke numbers again this year. It has for the last 3 years and did again this year. So good job to everybody involved in that. Update you on Metro real quick. You guys were asking how that was broken down. It's population based is how we're paying for things up there. City's about 76%. The county's at about 15%. People that are the entities that are involved are Barnum Mills, the county, and Casper. It's broken down into two components, one being the just the metro operations component, the other being the shelter component. Mills is shelter only. They're not part of the actual, or didn't partake in the metro operations component of things. Yeah, so it's everything's broken down by percentage up there. And then they have hired on a new manager that will start July 29th. And they're looking at the new shelter itself. They are in need of replacing the shelter. because they've completely outgrown it and they're looking at about 11,000 to 12,000 square foot facility that they want to build up there. There is a meeting tomorrow. I cannot attend because I will not be here. So if somebody has time tomorrow, 1 o'clock, if you'd let me know, I'd appreciate somebody being there for that meeting. And that's it.
Commissioner Milne.
Don't have much, other than on the 19th here in Casper at about 8:30, there's going to be a interim meeting with finance and investments. And they're going to discuss the local government funds, investments in equities, otherwise known as Amendment A, which everybody voted on. It has, it's turned into Wildstar 3 at this point. They're going to be looking at and discussing options because Wildstar 3 was not what most counties or local entities cared for. They wanted to have some say in the matter as to where their money could be invested. The LSO will be going over the constitutional authority of it and different, the 2024 budget session for legislation. They also will be presenting a white paper concerning local government investment pools for equities. WCCA is going to be there, Jeremiah, to discuss some different options. I've talked to a couple of people about it. I think this county's stance on a Wildstar 3, we're not interested. There need to be a lot of discussion on it. Wildstar 2 kind of bit us a little bit. So it would take some argument, some very good, some very
Persuasion.
good persuasion, yes. I'm trying to be nice here, to get me to agree and based off the history of our funds to participate in Wildstar 3. I think what we're asking for is options to participate in Wildstar 3 or participate with, since we have our own advisors and our own amount of money that we're interested in and is being cared for. I believe that counties are looking to be stewards of their own finances in case direct distribution, which is we're always concerned about disappearing or being reduced significantly. This would be a way for local entities to be able to survive that if necessary. But that's about it. Again, 19th at 8:30, and unless something happens, I'm going to be there.
Very good. I think that the concept of the Wildstar 3 is certainly legitimate. The voters, I think, agreed pretty clearly. I think that there are some shortcomings of how they've rolled it out under what is essentially, I think, the exclusive control of the state treasurer. And I agree with you. I don't feel particularly comfortable or confident that the state is going to really key in on and focus on the management of those funds. And that's just to say that they're so busy and focused with their own funds and investment accounts that they've actually told us that at least with respect to Wildstar 2, it was it seemed to me to at least be a pretty hands-off approach. So to the extent that the legislature can make an amendment and allow more local government control over local government funds, that certainly makes sense. I'm happy with where we are as a county in terms of the investment professionals that we've retained. I'm happy with where where we're now headed. I think that we as a commission have, set things into a better place. And the other thing I wanted to just mention is I think I continue to hear concerns from people with direct knowledge in the Banner community, Wyoming Medical Center, of continued problems. Some of these are former employees with direct knowledge of some of the facts of recent events. And I think that it was a good idea for us to bring Banner and the Collective Health Trust back in and ask them questions and make requests of them. I'll be following up with some of those individuals with Banner and the Collective Trust in the near future, and hope that they are going to be making some progress, or some, whether it's in regard to the advisory committee at Banner, or whether it's in regard to the Collective Trust, focusing in a little bit more on what Banner Wyoming Medical Center is doing in providing the highest level of care possible in our county. I think that there are some rumors of things going on, or where we might not have coverages that we need to be having. And so I'm hopeful that we will, that Banner will figure that out. One of the neat items is that we asked for expressions of interest in the Memorial Hospital Board of Trustees. We were not able to fill that board with the minimum requisite number of board members. And now we have 3 applicants for 2 positions. So I think that's great. I think we have a couple really good candidates, and I'm excited that the Memorial Hospital Board of Trustees is going to get up and running and can help our county out.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Laird.
if you're going to visit with the folks from the hospital, from Banner, would you ask them if it's true that they were transporting a patient to Denver and the wheel came off of their ambulance? I was told that, but I'm not sure it was true or not. But
Sure.
that's of importance to me to know that.
Sure. I can ask the question. I think that transitions us to just a brief discussion of the board appointments. Michelle sent us a spreadsheet or matrix of the different openings we have and different applicants we have, and I don't know that we need to get into specifics, but we have situations where in some cases we have a returning board member where they're seeking reappointment. There are no other applicants. Is there, in those situations, are we okay with just saying yes? Or do we want to interview basically unopposed renewing board members? I think that might not be the best use of our time. But I'd like the commission to weigh in on that. But I'd say first, where we have multiple applicants for a position, I think we've talked before about wanting to interview rather than pick just the existing board candidate over basically someone's one-page application. And so please weigh in on that, but we need to give Michelle a little direction for some of these vacant positions.
Mr. Chairman, where we have multiple people that are applying for a position that we've put out there and asked for people to apply, I think we need to be interviewing everybody, even if there's a recommendation from the board to have somebody come back on. It's our duty to interview each one and put the best person for the job in that place.
I agree with that, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that concerns me, because I don't quite have a really good feel for it, is that's when the board themselves make recommendations who they want. And I'm not too sure that's our job to figure that out. So I just plant that idea as to whether we want to continue to that process or not.
Yeah, Commissioner Miller.
So that, yeah, that's fine. The only the time that we may not look at doing the interview potentially would be if only one person applied, and if it was a reapplication for a prior board member for a board and there was no anybody else that had applied for that position. I don't see any benefit of if, unless there's a problem with them or a reported problem, then I don't see any issue or any issue or benefit of interviewing them. So if there's one person and nobody else is done, then I think we should go ahead and invite.
I agree with that.
So, Michelle, do you have that matrix in front of you? Great. So I'm just going to run through a couple of these that I think might be easy. With respect to the last one, Casper and Natrona County Board of Health, it's a joint appointment. They have to be a physician or physician-related. Christy Nelson is currently on the board. She has applied for renewal. She's received the health department's or the Board of Health's recommendation for approval, and there's no one else that's applied for that position. I don't think we need to interview her. My thought is we can go ahead and approve her reappointment. We wouldn't do that now in a work session, but is there any heartache with that?
No.
No, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate, it is for, what my comment was for reapplications, not for just the initial application somebody may be wanting on a board.
Okay, well then let's talk about that next. Amico Reuse Joint Powers Board. So again, another joint appointment. John Lee resigned. There's a Mike Layton applicant. I don't personally know him. He's not currently on the board. Do we want to interview him, or do we want to just, I don't see that we have a recommendation from Amico Reuse. What's the pleasure of the board? What's that?
Chairman, Commissioners, there's been a couple emails from my name calling that she has sent out, wondering if there's going to be a think they are.
Okay, it didn't have it on the version of the spreadsheet I was looking at. So
Mr.
there
Chairman,
is a recommendation.
There may be a recommendation, but he hasn't been on the board before. And so I would say that we do need to do an interview on that individual just because we don't know who it is. And you're going to appoint somebody that is going in blind. So I think you need to do an interview.
I agree with that.
Okay, Michelle, there's some guidance on that. Well, let me ask you this. We have, Jason Eiler has applied for Historic Preservation Commission. The retiring member is Carlin Buff. There are no other applicants. Mr. Eiler is, as I recall, one of the appointees of the Board of Memorial Hospital Board of Trustees. So we have actually interviewed him, but do we want to interview him for historical preservation?
I would say so.
Okay, so that's more guidance. Michelle, we will interview Mr. Eiler for that particular position. The Library Board of Trustees, there are actually 4 applicants for 2 positions, so we need to set up interviews for that.
Chairman, Commissioners, one more thing that I need to add to the spreadsheet.
So we have 5 for 2 positions. All right, great. Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission, we have two or, well, anyway, we need to do interviews there.
Well, we have only got one for the incorporated. The other, or I guess we do have two for the incorporated, so, yeah, we'll have to interview those.
Well, I think
Didn't see
we'll,
that last one, so.
and following Commissioner Laird and Commissioner Friel's comment about not knowing, some of these people, we will go ahead and interview both for the unincorporated slot and the incorporated, even though there's only one applicant at this point. Okay,
No,
Michelle?
there's two. There's two in the incorporated. No, there's one down here, and then Hal is putting his name back in, so we've got two.
2 and 2.
Yeah.
Thank you.
2 and 3.
So we will interview for those. And Hospital Board of Trustees, Michelle, we've either got 2 and one more is forthcoming, or there are 3 already received. So we'll interview those candidates. And the last one I had was the Casper Reentry Community, or Casper Reentry Center Community Board. This one's a little bit different because of the nature of this particular board. The vacancy is Jeffrey Bullard. He moved to another position. So then it's Scott Jones, Casper Police Department is the recommendation. And since that one is a specialized board, I don't think we need to interview, but
So do you?
are the commissioners in agreement with that?
Mr. Chairman, it's just one person being moved within the police department, another person taking that role over, so it's just simply a law enforcement officer switching spots.
So we can approve that, Michelle. And then there's obviously no action to take, I guess, for Planning and Development Board of Appeals because we don't have an applicant at this point. But qualified individuals for this plumbing position are welcome to apply. Michelle, are there any that I overlooked? November? No, it'll be July sometime, I think, with all the budget and other items we have. We'll work on sending around a message to see what the availability is and when we can jam as many into a half a day or whatever is possible.
For the health department and then Amico, did you guys just want to have 2 commissioners there? Or did you
Well,
have-
health department, I don't think
Health Department, I thought we were
we're just approving.
Well, so I got contact the city, see if they're in favor.
Well, right,
Yeah.
but we're in
But
favor.
our sides, yeah.
No. For the other one, yeah, I think 2 board members, and we'll get back to you on that, would be sufficient for that interview, since that'll have to be jointly set up. Okay. Then the next item is our meeting with Mr. Napier, who I'm not, there he is. I saw others from the city. So this appointment is with City Manager Carter Napier, City of Casper, for consideration of the proposed 6th cent for the City of Casper area on the ballot. Welcome.
I think we should welcome the mayor as well, Mr. Chairman.
Of course, here comes our distinguished mayor, Mr. Kathy. Welcome.
Welcome. to a point, Mr. Napier has thrown me under the bus.
And I see our vice mayor as well, so welcome.
Our vice
and
mayor, and I know there's at least one other council member there.
Welcome,
So-
welcome to everybody in the room.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I covered
The
the
the entire entourage.
And welcome to everybody watching online. Yeah, anyway.
There you go.
Okay.
And just for the formality of it, yes, I am Stephen Cathy, the mayor of Casper, and I have our distinguished city manager, Carter Napier, here with me.
Excellent.
And we are here today to request the commission, Chairman, Commissioners, we are here today to request the placement of a 6-cent option on the November ballot for the city of Casper. As to maybe allude to some of the questions, we have not decided on exactly which projects we will take to the ballot yet, because we weren't going to spend the life minutes of council and staff preparing a list to come here and receive a no. So we felt it more prudent to come here first, then develop our list. Also, we understand that there is concern from the county residents that because they have zip codes that also cross the territorial boundary into the city of Casper, that they would wind up being taxed. Mr. Napier, and he could allude to it further if he wish, has contacted our Department of Revenue, and they say this cross-boundary taxation problem is not only here, but nationwide, and that it is handled through the Department of Revenue and through the Departments of Revenue dealing with vendors throughout the country to ensure that it is only applied to within the city limits of Casper. So that is another gambit that we have checked on to follow up, and the Department of Revenue ensures that the county residents outside, regardless of zip code, will not be taxed.
Mr. Chairman.
Are you, I was going to allow them to continue.
Do you have anything
the
else to
presentation.
elaborate?
So is there anything else you'd like to present?
That pretty much sums it up.
Okay, great. Commissioner North.
How do I put this very diplomatically? I won't. I don't have a lot of faith in the Department of Revenue. They've given $175,000 that didn't belong to Midwest Edgerton recently. They gave a substantial amount to Casper that you had to pay back that should have gone to other communities as well. I've already experienced it personally when I've ordered things online and I was charged not Casper's tax, not Natrona County's tax, but Cheyenne's tax. So if you're ordering things online, those vendors aren't going to go back and look and see what the map is to see how they're going to tax it. That's where the problem is. Everything that's in the unincorporated area all the way around Casper has Casper addresses, Casper zip codes, and they're the same as Casper because they all go through the Casper post office. That's a problem. It's not the brick and mortar stuff. It's the stuff that's online. And I guarantee that if I ask everybody out here in the audience how many have ordered stuff online, every person out there would raise their hand. You know, I prefer to purchase things locally, but if it's not available locally and they have to order it and I can get it quicker online, I do. You know, I order that. And so there's a lot of problems. There's also a lot of businesses that are located, home-based businesses that are located in the county that pay for their sales tax right up front. If they're charged that additional amount, that's not fair to them either. So, you know, I'm not blaming Casper for this, so don't misunderstand this. I think there's a problem with the way the statute's written. If they had written the statute where everybody in the county, that if it was an online sale, that it would go to the county tax base, and then brick and mortars could actually collect that money separately, I wouldn't have any problem with it, but I just don't have a whole lot of faith in our Department of Revenue and the failures that I have seen just in the last few years. And like I said, Casper's been a victim of that, and so has Midwest Edgerton. So if you guys feel like that has been resolved and that's fixed, I would like to hear that, but I sure don't. I'm sure not hearing that from the people out, in Midwest and Edgerton, because they're having to pay back that money that they had already spent because they were given it. So I'm ears. I'm all ears, guys. But that's my concern.
I guess my only comment would be, have you brought these issues up to the Department of Revenue as a home-based business and as people that are continuing to do that? Because if these issues are not being brought up to the Department of Revenue, they may not even realize that they're happening.
I haven't had to because there hasn't been an additional 6 cent on anything in Natrona County. Now that there is, and we have a Casper address, and pretty much everybody around in the unincorporated area has that Casper address, that's where it's going to start.
Then
And
that's
so-
when, if that starts happening, I would suggest that is brought to either yourselves or to us to take to the Department of Revenue to start solving these problems.
Have there been any discussions with other counties, City of Cheyenne, Laramie County? I don't even know what's going on up in Teton County or Jackson. So I don't know if it's applicable in terms of a 6 cent or something else. But did Department of Revenue or did any of these other counties or cities indicate that this was or was not an issue?
Basically, we are the only place in the state of Wyoming that has these issues. Cheyenne passed a 6 cent, only they passed that countywide, and all of them applied, and all of them went forward with it. And because it was a countywide tax, they get to tax until the full value of their projects, which was, I think, 120 plus million, is garnered. However, because this is only a city tax, our tax can only go for 2 years, and we're estimating roughly 34 to 35 million. So that's all that we will put on our ballot would be a plate that would total 35 million. And then if some of those didn't pass, the tax would end sooner than the 2 years.
Yeah, Mr. City Manager.
Go ahead. Nope, go for it.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, good afternoon. To sharpen the point a little bit with regard to what the mayor is saying as well as to what perhaps your question is, Mr. Chairman, the notion of having to be specific with regard to which areas of the state should be taxed in comparison to other areas of the state is not a new challenge for the state of Wyoming, nor is it a challenge with respect to vendors who do business in Wyoming, even though they may not be located in Wyoming, like Amazon and so on. These are issues that may be new from a municipal standpoint, as the mayor was describing with regard to the legislation that was recently passed some 2 or 3 years ago. The idea of having to be very, very deliberate in terms of which areas of the state need to be taxed differently is not a new issue. And so I don't think that the challenges that we are identifying and frustrations that are legitimate that have been had in the past are issues that are reason enough to not allow the voters of Casper to determine if this is the course they want to take.
I have a question or two.
I heard from Commissioner Laird first.
Welcome, Mr. Mayor and Ms. Vice Mayor, and of course, Gardner Pier is one of my favorite people. Does a great job running the city of Casper. Thank you. I will say, gentlemen, I've been on the fence on this issue, and so I was hoping when you came in here today, you'd give me the laundry list. That's what had me on the suspense as to what you wanted the money for, and now I wouldn't know what you want the money for. Is one of them the Metro? Will that be on there, or do you know?
Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, the reality is, the council does have to sift through a number of projects in order to bring forward a list to the county clerk for adoption into the ballot. It is, without a doubt, one of the highest priorities that I can distill.
Absolutely.
Metro would certainly be something I would advocate for to the council as being a real critical need at this moment in time.
But you can't tell me now it'll definitely be on there. I was hoping you could do that.
Well, and
Because it's one thing I think we really need, actually.
Well, I agree that there is a need for that, but I think we heard from the mayor that you don't want to put the cart in front of the horse and before they really refine the list and make final decisions. But my understanding is that the Metro shelter has always been on the initial list and is recognized, I think, by everybody as being important.
What do you think that'll cost, Mr. Napier?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioner, we are anticipating that project to be in the neighborhood of $6 or $7 million if indeed the council determines to build brand new.
So the other couple things for me that make this one difficult is that I always go back and look at the statutes to see what my duties are as a county commissioner. My duties are to everybody in the county. And I sure have a lot of people that don't want me to vote to let this go on the ballot. Now, I did do that on the mill levy that we're proposing, which is going on, because everybody in the county gets to vote for that. And I don't want to put a tax on anybody personally. I just don't. I want the public to be able to vote on the tax, not me. And so they're going to have the information, I think, so they can vote intelligently. Because I think there'll be some things where I saw some partial list that was in the paper. And that's where I saw Metro involved in a BMX track and that kind of thing. All good things, but a lot of people won't want to pay for a lot of those things. And so, and that's going to be your issue with your advertising and your sales jobs. But my difficulty is that all my people that I represent don't get to vote on this. But I do have such great respect for you, Mr. Napier, that, I was on the committee that hired you at the city council. I think I did a pretty good job on that. But I'm still struggling with wishing I knew your laundry list.
Commissioner Friel.
Mr. City Manager, I'm hoping that maybe you can just explain this process itself, because what I'm hearing up here is I feel as though some people feel like we're passing a tax and we're not. The way I understand it is that there's going to be a laundry list of projects that are going to be put on a ballot, and nobody's asking us to make that decision for the voters. This is to put it on a ballot so that the voters can make their own decision as to whether they want a project to move forward or not. That's the way it should be. 5 of us should not be sitting up here saying yay or nay as to whether a project goes through. It's up to every voter out there to make their own decision whether they want the projects to go through or not. So if you could explain part of that, and then I think also to answer the question that people in the county, people in other jurisdictions, being Mills, whichever ones, Mills and Evansville, whoever did not feel that they had support, they had the option at some point in time to do exactly what you're asking us to do. They could have very well said, hey, we're going to put it on a ballot and we're going to let you guys decide. We're going to let each individual person decide yes or no on this, as you're asking us to do. They decided not to go that route. So to say that they don't have an option, that was their municipalities that said, hey, we're not going to give you the option. We're making a decision for you. Therefore, you've moved forward as the city of Casper to say, hey, we're asking you to put it on the ballot. We're not asking you to pass the 6.5 tax. We're asking you to put it on the ballot and let everybody that can vote decide yes or no on each individual project. If they pass, they pass. If they don't, they don't. Am I correct in that?
That was a good argument, Mr. Commissioner.
I was going to
Thank you.
I was going to say, I'm not sure that either one of us could have said it much better than what you did, because that is exactly what it's all about, is we are coming here because we did not get support from the other entities. And you are absolutely correct. All we are asking for you to do is to put it on the ballot. They will then have a list of projects that would total roughly that 35 million with a yes or no by each one of those. And so they could pick and choose all of them. They could choose none of them. And if they only chose one, say, for example, the $7 million Metro Animal, if it was on there, and if that was the only one that passes, then instead of that tax running for the 2 years, it would expire when the 7 million was raised.
Well, if that was on there, I'd vote for it.
There you go.
But I don't know, I wouldn't vote for some of those other things. I just wouldn't.
And we're not asking you to. That is.
No, I know,
That
I
is
know.
your prerogative, and that would be the citizens' prerogative.
I got it, Mr.
And
Mayor.
that's
I think
what we're trying
I'm
to
glad
get
that-
through.
I'm glad that Steve explained that, because I think a lot of people, because one of the overpowering things for me in this is that we're not voting on taxing our people. It's up to them to go to the polls and decide whether they want to vote or not. And I'm for that. I'm for our people being able to vote on whether they want to be taxed or not, solidly.
And that
So
is.
thank you.
And that is
Thank you,
exactly what
Commissioner
we're
Friel.
asking for.
Commissioner North.
All right. The people that are in the unincorporated areas in the county do not have that ability. They have to come to the commission to request a tax. They're not the cities of Mills. They're not the cities of Evansville. So if I buy something online and I haven't had a chance to vote on it, how do I get that tax money back? Because you know how hard it is to get anything back from the government? I'm just saying, you said that that's the Department of Revenue's responsibility. Have they got a map that they're going to send out to every one of these online vendors and tell them, no, you don't tax us 6%? If you guys got an answer for that, I'm more than willing to listen to it, but I don't see that, the people in the county aren't going to get a chance to vote on this, and I'm afraid they're going to get taxed on this, and they don't have that voice. That's where I have the problem with this whole thing. I'm not against Casper bringing this to the people of Casper. What I'm against is the people in the county being taxed when they don't have a voice in the game. That's where I have the problem with it. And right now, that's a big problem. And I don't think anybody can tell me that the Department of Revenue is going to get it right. Not be honest when they're saying it.
I'll defer that to you. You were the one that
No
talked to
problem,
them.
no problem. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioner, it is very, very difficult for the mayor of Casper and his trusty city manager to be able to make representations on behalf of the state of Wyoming or the Department of Revenue. What I can say, given what they explained to us and with the knowledge that they have in dealing with similar issues like this all over the state, is that they are prepared and equipped to entertain these kinds of challenging questions. Albeit this is a new application, granted, if this should pass. But the state of Wyoming is aware that we're trying to move in this direction, and I have faith that they'll do their best that they can to make sure that residents in the county don't get taxed unfairly or inappropriately. But we're here trying to get the opportunity for the voters of Casper to weigh in on projects that the council believes is important to them. And it's hard for us to represent county residents as well, because it was the voters of Casper that put the council people in their positions that you see today.
So,
And I don't expect you to do that, but that is our job, to represent the entire county. That's the reason why we have to ask these questions. That's the reason why we have to be heard, not only on, I mean, I want the answers, or the questions answered before I can say, yeah, we're going to do this. And if that comes from the Department of Revenue saying, yeah, we are definitely going to take care of this, we are going to make sure that the county residents don't get taxed just because they have a Casper address. That's what I need to hear. And I want to know how they're going to get that funding back if they do get taxed. And I don't know what the answer is on that because, like I said, they don't have a very good track record for getting things right now. You know, and not long term. This is just recently that they messed up on sales tax and property tax and other things. So I don't have a whole lot of confidence in something this complicated because it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, what are you going to do? Draw a map around and send it to all the vendors and say, yeah, if they're in this area, you don't tax them?
Commissioner,
That doesn't work for me.
Commissioner Friel.
Mr. City Manager, just to clarify too, that, because we don't have a list of projects, let's just say that, we'll create one. Casper Event Center maybe needs some work done to it because it's 40 years old, like every other building you have in the city that was built in the 80s. And it needs to be repaired, and so you're gonna come up with money with that. The tax that would be gathered within the city of Casper itself. So anybody that comes into the city of Casper would pay that tax to help pay for these repairs on said building. That I am very sure and very confident that people from the county, Mills, bar none, probably show up and utilize that facility throughout the year. So it goes to pay to rebuild something that is a benefit to everybody within the county. Is that fair enough to say?
Very fair. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I did have one short question.
I'd like to ask my hypothetical first.
Yes, go ahead.
So, first, you have, Mr. Napier, you sent us a communication from the Department of Revenue and a newsletter. I forwarded it to my commissioners. I cannot tell you that I've digested hardly any of it yet. Been kind of trying to do that here. So now we have this printed in front of us. And maybe my fellow commissioners will review some of what Department of Revenue has stated. My hypothetical is I live on the edge of the boundary of the city of Casper. I've lived there for whatever, 12, 15 years, time flies. I didn't even know I was in the newly created legislative district. I thought I was in my old district. And when they did the redistricting, I found out that I was part of this Converse County, Natrona County House District. And it's literally just my little street that's been carved off of the rest of this area that's commonly, well, it's in that Centennial Hills area. It's hard for me to, so I have a P.O. box in Casper. I have a residential address that says Casper 82609. It's a little hard for me to believe that Amazon, if I order my whatever from Amazon or Walmart or whatever online, that they might act like a scalpel in looking at whatever map that I haven't seen yet and be able to distinguish that my little street is actually in the county and not in the city of Casper, because the city of Casper is basically on two sides of the little subdivision I live in. So, I think there is some concern because it's my understanding I'm not going to, on the ballot, I'm not going to have a chance to vote on these projects. And if somebody screws up, if Amazon screws up or whomever, and they start, taxing me this, then either I don't worry about it because it's too much brain damage, or I go to the Department of Revenue, and that's even more brain damage potentially, or I ask you for a reimbursement, the city of Casper for a reimbursement, which I think is improper. I don't know how that could be proper if there's a mechanism for that. So I don't know if my concern is justified, but I think you can see how if these entities out there who've never been to Casper, Wyoming, probably don't even know where Casper is, and they're operating off of some map, even though my shipping address is Casper 82609, I'm a little nervous that it really is this. Well, how come I can't say yes or no on this laundry list of projects? By the way, I think they're all meritorious. I think I like every one of them based upon this initial list that I've seen floating around. So I don't know if Commissioner North and I are just two of a few, or if there are 1,000 people in a similarly situated situation. So I think that is a concern, and I think we do have to have an answer. If we move forward and put this on the ballot, then I think we have to have an answer to those constituents and my wife, Commissioner North's wife, what we're going to do when we get charged, $2 on a $200 order, which would be that 1 cent. Multiply that through the course of a year, and then the brain damage and figuring out how much that is and which receipt or which, I don't know. I hope that it works magically and wonderfully, but I do share some concern that Department of Revenue might not be as concerned about that boundary line and that map. So I don't know if you have any response to that long-winded statement, but I just wanted you to understand, and the other people in this room to understand, that that's as real as it gets for me personally, even though I'm I think I'd be supportive of most of these items.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's, for one, the assumption that I think may be insufficient with regard to what the state does to ensure that the appropriate taxation is levied against the appropriate taxpayer. It needs to be addressed first, and that is that they use zip codes to do that. They were very clear right out of the gate in our conversation that is a fallacy. They do not use zip codes as their only litmus with respect to how taxpayers should be assessed for that particular $2 of a $200 order to Amazon. So that's the first level of concern that I'd like to address. That is wrong. They don't use zip codes. They use addresses, for sure. And those addresses are what they evaluate, where it is that the particular district needs to be assessed or not assessed. Furthermore, the other step that they take is they do notify the vendor, and they also notify the vendor that they, in their own liability, are expected to take the communication, a copy of which I sent to you earlier, to address their way in which they assess taxes as well. So for those that live in Casper, they are expected to add an additional cent. For those that don't live in Casper, don't assess that additional cent. I cannot testify at this moment in time whether or not they each get a GIS file that shows all of those intricacies around the borders of the community. I would like to think they do. I'm not a state employee. I've never worked for the Department of Revenue, so I don't know for sure. And for that, I don't know how to satisfy those kinds of questions. But nonetheless, again, I want to be emphatic. This is not the first time that the state has been asked to assess neighbors differently throughout the state of Wyoming. This is not a new question. It may be a new municipal tax idea pursuant to the statute that's been passed, but it is not a new question with regard to neighbors being taxed differently than other neighbors. That's not new. And again, I'm purposely being emphatic because I have seen that as well throughout the state, and I don't know what kind of history and difficulty that's presented to the state of Wyoming, but I do know that this is a process that they've had to address before, albeit in a different application.
Thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner Friel, you I thought did have a comment a few minutes ago. Okay. Commissioner Mill.
Figured I'd get my 2 cents in here a little bit. So in this county, regardless of the towns or the other city, Casper is where a lot of things are. Your Walmarts. There's no Walmart other than in Casper. We do have 2 Cowboy Kmarts, one's in Evansville, one's in Casper, but majority of a lot of the services are in Casper. So in essence, this is concerning because it is almost county tax due to just the sheer amount of services within the one city, right? So you can understand where a lot of people are having a little bit of heartache on this, above and beyond the online stuff, because that's where majority of, at least my money spent, is within the city, not online. Well, the doTERRA that Laura orders, that may be, but anyways, but that's where most of it is, and so that's where I think some of the concern is also is that in essence it still is a county tax just because Casper is a provider. It's a sole provider for a lot of services that are there, and so not having that say, I understand that. But with that being said, I drive on 2nd Street, which is a project potentially, to get to that Walmart. I use a lot of city services to get to those services that I need. So it's a give and take. I'm not, I can understand where there's concern. I can understand where there's some thought process there about the taxes, but there's a lot of city services that the county residents use as well. We don't just bypass Casper somehow without using the city street. So, yeah.
Good point. Good point. I'm going to ask you a kind of a weird hypothetical. Let's say this gets passed and one of the car dealerships decides that I don't want to compete, or I can compete better if I only get, there's only a 5% tax when you buy a car from us, and so they move their dealership to Mills. It's a possibility, I guess, huh?
Please.
I believe they still wind up paying, if their address is in Casper, they still pay the Casper sales tax.
Yeah, unless they move their whole operation there. I was just,
Well, no, the whole dealership can move there.
yeah.
If they're living in Casper, they pay Casper taxes.
So one of the interesting issues when I was on the city council is that Casper got a couple $1 million from a company named Solvay, which was out of Rock Springs, and they just made a mistake because we were only 5% and Rock Springs was 6%. And their accountant just made a mistake and put Natrona County in there, so we got the money. Well, when they finally figured it out, Casper had to pay that money back. Now, maybe it's paid back by now after all these years. But I agree with Mr. North. There's a lot of things that happen down in that revenue area that escaped me because they wouldn't tell me when I was on the city council who the company was. But I found out who the company was. And then they wrote some letter of apology to the city that it was just, their accountant that did that. So I know how these taxes can get shuffled around, but these guys have convinced me of something, and that is the people around here use the Casper services. I think Casper has the right to collect, to put on a ballot and ask the people to vote. I am concerned about people who would say, we got taxed and we had no representation. And you 5 guys provide that for us. Fortunately, I differentiate that. If it was a tax that was going to be placed on them, there's no way I'd go for the tax. The fact that it's going to be voted on is an entirely different matter. But our duty is to the whole county, just so you know. And you know that anyway. And I wish you the best on the thing.
Commissioner Friel.
I do just want to share part of an email that was sent to us today from, it was forwarded to us from Mayor Juarez out in Mills, who is in support of Casper. I support Casper pursuant to 6 cent on their own. It's important to my community to understand that we utilize many of these Casper managed resources, and Metro being at the top of that list. So to say that there's not support, there is support from other municipalities. The mayor of Mills says that she supports that for the very reason of what I've said earlier, is people utilize things within the city of Casper and some of these projects that are coming forward. People are going to utilize them. To say that you're not, or to say that I should be able to utilize it, but I don't have to pay for it, is, in my opinion, not right. I think the ask that you're here today for is for us to put it on the ballot and let the voters decide, so.
Commissioner North.
Just for curiosity reasons, have you taken, the council taken any of these to the other municipalities, i.e. Metro, or any of those, and asked for support on those, to bring those individually as a whole county issue and not just as a city of Casper? I know there's some things on there that they wouldn't support, so I'm just saying the things that you're saying are unilaterally used by the county. I'm just wondering if you had taken those to the other municipalities and asked them if they would support that.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioner, there is a lot of unanimity around Metro and seeing some changes from a physical plant standpoint with that facility. In fact, in Mayor Juarez's letter to all of you, she identifies that as well. But to say that we have taken the entire laundry list of things that potentially the council could consider submitting for the ballot, if this should pass today, and go through each of the projects that are on that list, I would emphatically say no. The only thing that we have really talked about in a lot of detail is Metro, and that's because a lot of the county partners and neighbors and so on are also going to be participating in a formal agreement as participants in Metro. We tried to get to another part of your question, if I may, Mr. Commissioner. We did spend a lot of time at the end of the calendar year in 23 talking about ways in which we could approach the entire county with regard to a capital facilities tax, and ways in which other communities could participate with projects that they have, projects that the city has, and so on, and take another run at a traditional 6 cent approach. It is true that no community wanted to come on board with regard to approaching the entire county for a countywide 6 cent tax. No community, which, according to the statute, opens up that opportunity for one community to come forward and approach their voters. And that's why we're here today, because we've tried to take a number of different approaches throughout the last 12 months, particularly, and ask for a more unified approach to all of you, so that every county resident could weigh in on a different array of projects as well, and that was not supported. Therefore, we are here to see if the Casper voters will support us on a number of projects. We need your help in getting on the ballot, and that really is the question. Can we get on the ballot?
So you didn't really answer my question. That was a true political answer, and I appreciate that 100%.
Let me have another shot.
Okay. My question was, which one is these? I know, Metro is something that we've talked about. That's something that, as an individual program, that I think would probably be supported by the other municipalities, because so many people use it. Are there other items on your list, and I'm not saying the entire laundry list, so don't misunderstand that at all. Are there other items that are countywide that could specifically would garner the support of the entire county? That's what I'm asking.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioner, my answer is, the only one that I'm aware of is Metro. There are not other. We certainly could. I think there would be some appeal.
It was on.
Yeah, there certainly would be some appeal, I think.
Well, I'm just saying, if you have a long laundry list, I'm guessing that there's more than one thing on there that would appeal to the entire county.
But I didn't run it through the entire county to try to figure out, you
No,
know what I mean?
I-
We haven't done a survey. We didn't run each of the items through the various mayors. I'm trying to be as clear as I possibly can. The only one that we could find that had universal appeal was Metro. 911 Center could possibly be that other project.
The 911 center, the 911 center was on that list that was shown in the paper, Oil City News. That potentially, since that is the county dispatch center, should have countywide support. But that and Metro would have been the only two potentially that would have the countywide support. And that's strictly speculation on my part
Well,
for the 911.
No, and I don't expect an exact answer. I'm just asking for my own curiosity reasons, because I don't know what all would support mainly Casper and which ones would support the entire community. So that's the reason why I'm asking. I just, we do have to represent the entire county, and I understand why you're bringing this before us. So don't take my frustration out as being against the city of Casper. That's not what it is at all. But I do firmly believe, 248 years ago, this country went to war because of taxation without representation.
So,
And that's what I'm afraid of. If the people in the county can't vote on something that they're having to pay the tax on.
so
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Mr. Counsel, basically, we went, as the city manager had said, back at the start of the year to the municipalities and said, are you interested in a countywide tax? You can put your projects on, we will put our projects on, and blanketly, they said no. So if they weren't even willing to talk at that time, I'm not going to keep trying to beat on them to bully them into trying to support a 6-cent countywide tax. I don't think that's appropriate for elected officials to try to browbeat other entities into supporting them. They need to come up on their own, and if they think they are supporting their constituents, then so be it. The one thing that I would mention is basically you are referring to the out-of-city county members. You have 58,000 county members that live in the city of Casper, and I want you to remember that as well. They are county residents.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. We have just a minute or two left, and I
And-
wanted to, number one, give you a last chance to make any final comments, but I wanted to be clear, you're asking us tonight to vote on putting this on the ballot. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I don't believe we've seen a resolution that's been proposed. So I think we can, make a motion. We would want to get that language right. And I've asked our attorney to start thinking about how that might look or read if a commissioner chooses to make such a motion for the approval of it to be placed on the ballot. I don't suppose you have any draft language of a motion that you were wanting us to consider.
No, sir.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
And what is the deadline, Mr. Chairman?
We'll work on that. Yeah, if, again, we don't have too much time, so I want to give you a chance for any final parting comments. But my understanding from our discussion, my discussion with the city manager, is there's a mid-July deadline. And with the Parade Day holiday, 4th of July holiday, the few meetings between now and then, that the request is that we act on it tonight.
Thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen?
The only thing that I would like to say is I probably didn't use all of the appropriate protocol with Mr. Chairman, Counselor, et cetera. I'm still kind of new at all this government stuff, so I do apologize if I offended anybody by those statements or comments back and forth. Do you have any closing comments?
No closing comments. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I know this is a tough question. It's a new opportunity, and we think it's a big idea, and we hope that you'll get behind us and help us see what the Casper voters want to do.
And a major point, Mr. Chairman, for me is that the Wyoming legislature gave them the authority to do this. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
So if you go to the other towns, the law is, and they say no, they can't stop you from doing what you think is right for your city. Am I right on that?
That is correct.
And what you're asking us to do is just say, put it on the ballot and leave it up to the people that vote. Is that also true? Because I'm not voting for a new tax.
Commissioner Laird.
It's a different situation. Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Friel, thank you.
Just one last quick question. Mr. Napier, are there other communities around the state of Wyoming within the last 5 years or so that have done similar type of a ballot or projects that have been listed out to be voted on individually?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, there certainly have been 6-cent menu-driven ballots that have happened throughout the state. Most notably, and certainly one that I'm most familiar with, having read the ballot language fairly recently, would be down in Laramie County with the city of Cheyenne, where they passed a menu-driven ballot question on a countywide 6-cent proposal. And I think that was to the tune of $128, $130 million.
And once again, this is a menu-driven, so it's a yes or no answer on each individual project.
Each individual proposal.
Proposal.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And also for clarification, this would appear on the general election ballot?
Mr. Chairman, our understanding is that it would be in the November ballot. That's right.
Okay, and our clerk is nodding, and they're also, good. And the other thing we've discussed in the past, a senior district is a primary ballot item. So just for the public to understand that they're not going to both be on the same ballots. Okay, I appreciate your time. You come and see us anytime, Mr. Mayor, whatever, you can call us anything you want. Anyway, thank you to you and Vice Mayor as well, and we'll see you around. Our next item is a continuation of our budget discussion. We spent quite a bit of time yesterday on that, and there are continued discussions to have. We're going to take a 5-minute break and start up as close to 3:30 as we can. Thank you. We're going to continue with our budget discussion. Okay, I get it. Hi, where are we at?
Drug court.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, turn to the tab Drug Court.
We'll need to readdress IT.
So the drug court number, total request is $484,733. We have an attachment that has their annual budget.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Milne.
Yeah, the biggest thing that jumped out on me, and maybe no, what?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. This is a pass-through, just exactly as child support enforcement.
Okay, direct pass through. Commissioner Milne.
Yeah, it's still, though, however, and maybe they need to explain or whatever to the state, but their travel budget was just increased insanely. But that's, it is for over what they use, so that is what it is.
And Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding this is a total bottom line budget as far as the state's concerned. They give them a set amount every 2 years and then they allocate the funds as they see fit.
Never mind. Misreading it.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I've been corrected by Steve. Steve likes doing that.
Good job, Commissioner Frill.
All right. Well, we're moving right along to the fair. Is this a pass through?
I wish.
To the Fair Board, did you say?
Yeah, we're talking about the tab, turn to the tab for the fair. Where do you want to start? We have the fair, Mr. Jones's narrative. We see that they're projecting about a 5% increase over the prior year's budget. They give us their little information on why that's the case. Any thoughts, questions, concerns, or comments?
Remember yesterday we cut 20,000 off their budget.
That was off equipment.
Off of the equipment item,
Was that the,
the bleachers.
Bleachers.
that was the bleachers?
Yeah.
I meant to ask Mr. Milne a question if he can answer it. Did they ask for 5% more than they got last year? Did they make 5% more money or 10% more money this year than they did last year? Or do we know?
I couldn't answer that off the top of my head. Tom does have those facts and figures. I can probably get them for you.
That would
I
be great.
believe in some of the supporting documentation, he does address that, if I remember right.
Does anybody have the dollar amount of their 2% increase to the operations budget? I know we have this long spreadsheet. I don't know what page the operations budget is on.
So that would be start at 8, I believe.
And where's the 8 to,
And that's just for operations. The,
does that end on page 11? No,
no.
12.
Um,
Oh, there it is. Page 10 is the budget for operations. That's where it starts. And page 11 is the total amount.
You have a summary on 17 for different things such as administration, operation. Does it, I'm looking back.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 11 for operations. It went last year 986, right? 640 to $1,000,009.
Page 17.
What was that amount?
Page 17.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm also looking at page 11. Thank you.
I'm trying to remember during his narrative when he was here talking, I believe he had new positions, personnel that came on. Was that right?
Yeah, I think they raised the wages for some of their some of the staff, the hourly,
And brought 2 on, wasn't it?
but I think that's under administration, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Payroll is on 8. That's just taxes, payroll taxes. Um, that's right. Then. Insurance is on 8. Tournament's on 8. Okay, so wages themselves are on 9. Up 4 columns. Clerical, grounds, weight management. I don't know what fair is. So those are flat.
The grounds, wages.
Or no, never mind.
Prior year.
I wish.
Oh, you're right. So it went up 2 years ago. It went up quite a bit. It
Yeah.
doubled. This year it actually went down 4,000 for
Yeah.
rounds. Management stayed the same.
Yeah,
Clerical stayed the
those are
same.
all flat.
Management fees.
Retirement went up 4,000.
Because those were for the COLAs that were approved for last
Right.
year.
I think that's on, yeah, back clear to the end of his sheets. You got two sheets. Talks about the COLA, the different year and and what happened through the years 22, 23, 23, 24.
Well, what are the under the administration, there's a increase of $249,000.
Where you at?
Well, I'm looking at page 17.
No revenues.
Mr. Chairman,
No, that's going back 2 years. So that one actually only went up by $1,000. So not 249, that was 2 years ago.
so the amount that's on your worksheet is for operations and admin, and it is less than what was approved this current fiscal due to, this current fiscal's number included money for that concrete base for the statue.
And the pavement also, did it include that as well?
Not in this line, no.
Okay.
That was in the equipment line that we cut yesterday.
No, I mean the year before.
No,
Okay.
that's always under capital.
So the way I'm reading the fair proposal, I'm seeing administration being basically flat. There's $1,000 more requested. Is that right?
Yeah.
Over last year?
Yes, he's saying it's less than 1% of the increase is less than 1% in the admin
But
budget.
yeah, it's way less than 1%. And then for operations, that's a difference of 133,000. So is there any
So-
desire to reduce the operations side, that increase of 133,000?
So the expenses, he's talking revenue. Everybody's, when you see the 5% that's in revenue, what he's been projected to generate over the year. This is one of the few departments that actually generates revenue. And so he's projecting a 5% increase of generating revenue over last year. His expenses are the next couple paragraphs
Yeah.
down, and that's a 1% increase, less than 1%, and a 2% increase in his operations budget.
Correct, that's what I've been.
Right.
That 2% is that
Sorry, I got
133,000.
caught up on the somebody said 5%.
So I'm just, if y'all are okay with it where it is, then
After the cuts,
if,
after the cuts yesterday, yeah.
all right. So the next is the health department tab.
$9 million. It's a big number.
Are there questions, comments, or concerns about items on the health department's request?
Tracy, what is the current expenditures on,
Yeah, the number we have as of May 3rd is 551.
They will expend their full 735,964.
okay.
Are there any items in particular that the commission wants to talk about reducing or addressing?
How's her staffing with nurses and stuff? I see a drop in, or the proposed increase with salaries, and that's reflective of her trying to retain or bring in some nurses, correct?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know. I know their contract with the state of Wyoming is gonna be at a higher reimbursement rate or a higher pay rate. That wouldn't be here necessarily. So what is 1256748 times 1.0? So there, yeah, I don't know what that $126,000 increase is. Let me look back at my notes and see if she
I can't
addressed
find
that.
it.
Well, I have 8 nurses that are impacted by that House Bill 74, the nursing bill. But the other thing I have on wages or salaries, salary increase to be comparable. And she looked at those with Danielle. That's the extent of my note on salaries.
Thank you.
So the 126 is the nurses, the difference? Or is it across the board?
I don't know that. I
Okay.
think it's just a broader salary adjustment for the health department's, more broadly staff based to, I don't know if to bring it up to minimum or what, but apparently she conferred with Danielle. And that's really the only indication I have.
Okay. I'm good.
We asked her to keep it flat and she kept it flat.
Right. I'm not hearing any other questions, comments, or concerns, so we will leave that as requested at the 700,000, 735. HR is the next tab. With the narrative. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
I got a question real quick, if you don't mind, please.
Go ahead.
Tracy, can you take a look at 8122? What's our current spend on that one?
$9,556.
Sorry, what was that?
Well,
$9,555.56. So we're over.
do we want to increase that to 10? Just to, I don't see it going down, not with the prices for testing.
Yeah, I don't think that hurts us. I don't think that's a bad idea. Any concerns with adding $1,000 to the testing line item? Let's go ahead and do that, Tracy. think she explained the increase in bonds. It's pretty much flat, the budget request from last year. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on the HR proposal? So Tracy, the only thing we're gonna do is add $1,000 to that pre-employment testing line item.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Move. Okay.
It's kind of weird. All right. In IT. And we did get this amended supplemental letter. So, Madam Clerk, the aerial flight of $388,000 and change, that was not on the original. Is that right?
Correct.
We, as a commission, roughly a month ago, month and a half ago, said these are the bells and whistles that we want. And so now we have that number to add, and then she's decreasing by $58,000 based upon taking out a special project and reducing professional services. So, Commissioner Friel.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to point out, I made notes and everything that she had talked about originally. 7031, she was talking about a $13,000 decrease, 7112, a $30,000 decrease, and then 8433 special projects, $30,000 decrease, and that's, I mean, pretty much in line with what she's got here right now is what she said she could take out of there.
Right.
So if I did the math right, it's roughly about $73,000 that she took out, and she's asking that back in 21.
Yeah, we talked about one plotter instead of two would save $8,000. Talked about some other possible reductions. Talked about not wanting to reduce security. I think we're all in agreement with that. So then are we okay with it as amended? I think in her budget narrative, her original budget narrative, it was, you know, I think she lined out what the reductions were. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns on IT request as amended? We'll add the 388, 110.
What line item does that go under, Tracy?
I have a email into Eileen right now.
Would not be GIS project.
I'm assuming, but
That's what I put it next to.
I can throw it in there for now.
And would you, oh, here it is. Yeah. All right, so with Eileen's amendment letter, are you clear, Tracy, on what the bottom line's gonna look like there and what line items to adjust?
From her letter, yes. If you have any additional changes, I'm not there yet, but I can be.
Library is next. Right? To the library tab. The library has requested a significant increase, kind of changing the philosophy on things. Proposing a $2 million increase for building projects. We see that in one of the letters from Lisa, April 24th. As a means to establish a formal plan to address life safety issues as requested by Deputy Garvin. And it's also, it was also indicated that if unused could be utilized for a new library building. What are the thoughts on that part of the library request?
I have a thought or two, Mr. Chairman. You're talking about the 2 million?
Right.
They told me they wanted to do that, and I've had a visit with them about it. And what I didn't know at the time, and I still don't know now, have we ever, as far as anybody knows, done that kind of a request where somebody wanted money that they would take out of our savings account, put in their savings account for a building of any sorts or for repairs? I know I've talked about that off and on, that we should have a fund that we earmark specifically for repairs of our buildings. I know we've talked about it. I can't even remember what everybody's thoughts on it were, because all of our buildings, are 40, 50 years old, and they need constant repair and probably remodeling. And in the case of the library, however, they would like to build a new building. And so as a result, a lot of the repairs on the current building have never been made because I guess the commission hasn't really given them the guidance that the commission wants to have happen there. So I think we have to either consider getting their building repaired and getting it brought up to codes and what have you, or consider, are we going to give them, I don't even know how many millions of dollars for a building, but we should take a stance on that at some point so that people aren't confused every year about what we should be doing. I did ask them to put in this request what the bid costs were of fixing all this stuff, which has gone up considerably, like all things are going up. And so they could give the commissioners a better picture, I think, of what's happening there. And so I'm hoping the commission will take their stance on what they want to do and let them know clearly what the commission wants to do. And I know there's an issue there about who should be owning the building. I think that should be cleared up. Many things should be cleared up rather than passed on down the line, and that's just my own thoughts and my own recommendations.
Commissioner Friel.
Mr. Chairman, so my thoughts on this, we have for quite some time tried to sit down between the foundation and the library and the county and the city and tried to work out a deal as far as land swap goes. During all this, we continually get numbers that are just pulled out of the air as far as what a new building is going to cost. We've gone to the point of telling them that they put up some money, we put up some money, and figure out what the cost is going to be once a piece of land has been decided upon. And then after that, they go out and they look at existing buildings and they look at them to decide whether they're going to work or not, and then they walk away from those. And now this is the final product, is come back to the county and tell us that we need to give them $2 million per year until they raise enough money to put this library together. I'm pretty much at wit's end with this. If there's direction to be given, I think that Lisa's given us that direction in her budget by giving us letters from the fire department from 10 years ago of saying things that needed to be fixed that have not been fixed to this day. And so if there's any direction I'd want to go on this, it's no on the $2 million and setting up an account moving forward to build a new building. And I think we should go in and figure out what it's going to cost to bring the current library up to standards and put a plan together to fix the current library. That's where my stance is on this. I was more than happy to listen to this 2 years ago, but I'm at a point now where we're basically being told we need to put money back to build this, and there are no other options. So where I'm at, if you want direction, where I'm at is fix the existing building.
Well, I'm glad you made it clear what you wanted. I don't think they're telling us to do anything. I think they're asking us to do some things. I think we owe them exactly what you said. There should be a vote on, and maybe you should make a motion on what you've just said, because until we get this clarified, everybody's floundering. And I don't think we need to be floundering with our library. I think we need to make the stance. We're the commissioners. We got elected. It's in our duties to take care of these matters, make sure these buildings are functional and in good repair, and or build a new building. And we all know what our funding is, and so I think we need to make a statement in this meeting as to where we're heading with this.
So we're not going to make a motion at this work session. My feeling is that I sent out a letter to all departments and elected officials saying not just the standard form of status quo budget, but actually take a legitimate look at where you can make cuts, knowing that things are going to be a little tight. I think that we see an increase here that isn't particularly well thought out, and giving a $2 million check for them to use, plus the maintenance request that we saw here from Friday afternoon of transferring the maintenance department's amount that Garrett had looked into and had come up with it, $112,600 be transferred to them so that they can maintain the building, with some exceptions, meaning the county continues to do snow removal and uses our purchasing power. None of this is a plan. I think we do need a plan. I don't think this is really a budget session discussion. I think it's a sit down with the library liaison and another board member, or maybe in the entire commission, and work on an actual plan. There has been a plan for the past 4 budget cycles, as I pointed out during our discussion with the library folks. There was a line item in their budget for life safety issues, and they almost never used any of it. So $200,000, $209,000, $212,000, $132,000. Every year it was either not used or about 1% was used. There was about 13% used in 2024, and I think that was maybe had to do something with the fire alarms. But in any event, I think there are some discussions to be had, not just with respect to whether it's a new building or it's this building, but it's to come up with a plan. And I don't think they're ready to maintain that building. I don't think that they have the staff. I don't know that they have really it in place. If it becomes evident after discussion and thought that maybe there are some significant material changes to be made, then that's fine if the commission decides to go that direction. But that's a fiscal year 26 impact in my mind, not a fiscal year 25 impact.
Mr. Chairman, well said. I think that we ought to separate the $2 million out now. And as you say, give that some more thought, sit down with the library. But I think now we need to take a look at the budget they've suggested, which is higher. Because what I found was that they weren't putting things in their budget that they just weren't putting in their budget, that is items that are budgetary. So yes, it is more, and I think we need to take a hard look at it and see what it is we support. When I explained this to them, it isn't any one person's idea, it's the commission chairman's and the commissioners who make that decision. And I think we've got to be starting to make some decisions so that everybody, whether they love it or don't, that's what the decision we made. And we go on from there.
Thank you, Commissioner North.
I just got a question for Tracy. What's the current expenditures?
$2,478,896.
Say it one more time.
As I click off
Pass.
of it.
2.4 mil.
2.478 something.
I'm sorry, it's the total amount, 2,748,896.
2 million.
2 million.
So because this is one of those items where they say, give us the money and then they bill for it quarterly or
Correct.
something like that. So it's the full amount.
The full amount has been
Okay.
expended, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what it was.
You know, is there any appetite to fund the $2 million as requested?
Mr. Chairman, I understand the need completely. But I think the timing is not very appropriate right now with us looking at a shortfall that we have. We've got so many things that we have to take care of right now that we're obligated to take care of. And I do agree that we need to take care of the buildings that we have, including the library and everything else. We got the detention center, we got the Hall of Justice, we got a lot of stuff that we have to take care of. And right now, I just don't think it's the appropriate time to be putting that kind of funding aside specifically for a single building. I think we need to identify the areas that we need to address immediately and do that with all of our buildings and then move forward with that. Not just say this much is going to this specific building. So I'm not saying that we don't need to take care of things. I'm just saying we need to prioritize very well.
Commissioner Millen.
No, I'm in agreement with the 2 million. It's not appropriate in this setting. We should have had more discussion. If that's what they wanted to do, then to approach it in this manner. Moving past that, because I don't believe any of us are in support of that, looking at their proposed budget distribution though.
Can we, before we, well, I was going to talk about this maintenance item where they requested the transfer of the $112,000 from maintenance and Garrett over to the library. Is there any appetite to do that at this point? Okay, so Tracy, that's from this letter we got Friday.
That's correct. And when we get to Garrett's library budget, 99% of those requests are in his request for the library building.
Okay.
So we can compare those.
But I think we're clear that we're not going to transfer Garrett's budgeted amount for that building over to the library.
Okay, thank you.
We'll address maintenance of that building in Garrett's discussion. So,
Thanks.
so then Commissioner Millen, why don't you go ahead with,
Yeah, just going further into what they proposed. If you look at the last page in your book, it talks about programs, books, and materials and whatnot. They are requesting funds for programs or grants which may not be guaranteed in the future or may not be available in the future. You know, I know Lisa's watching. I love the library, I support it, but just because it may not be guaranteed or may not be available in the future doesn't mean we can afford it now. And so I think at least those two items need to potentially be discussed here as far as what we want to do with that. Just like, again, just because it's not available or may not be guaranteed in the future. It doesn't mean we necessarily need to fund it right now at that point, especially with us looking at how tight county is right now.
You know, I don't think that their request is inappropriate, Mr. Chairman. I think the commission has to take a stand on whether we're going to give them money for a new library or not. And then they know. And so for them to ask for the 2 million, they're telling you they would like a new library, and here's how they would like to do it. I think it was well thought out, basically. What I did explain is this, what I'm saying here. The commission hasn't made a statement that's solid and concrete as to their position about that. And I think it's time to do it. And I think that takes care of the issue. Because we know we have to maintain buildings, but what's happened over these years, the building has had really slack maintenance in terms of the things that they've listed because they've wanted a new library and didn't want to use the money for a new library. So I don't, you know, I hear you guys doing signals there, but I just want to hear what you both think. That's all I want.
Okay, well, Commissioner Friel wanted to respond, but I had moved on from the 2 million and the new library conversation to the operational thing. But Commissioner Friel, go ahead.
Well, I was going to respond back real quick to Dallas. I think we have made it clear. And that's where my frustration lies, is we have asked over and over again to get us clear numbers that have, not something you just pull out of the sky or off the internet. Get somebody that can tell us what it's going to cost. And let's get a plan in place. And that hasn't happened. It goes from one to the next to the next. And here we are now asking us to put $2 million away every year. So if there's a clear message to be sent, they need to make a decision as to what they're going to do, put a plan in place, get actual numbers behind it, then we can move forward. In answer to the other question, as far as on this goes.
Just let me interrupt, Mr. Friel. I don't think they have the money to do that. That's why it hasn't been done. That's all I'm saying.
Gentlemen, we discussed all sorts of plans over the last 9 months, but including funding $500,000 for coming up with hard numbers and a real design. But anyway, we're not here today to really hash this out. I think there are conversations to talk with the library to have and probably with the city to have and the foundation. But right now today, I think we need to keep going. Commissioner Friel, did you have one more comment?
So I'm just going to tell you that I agree with what Commissioner Milne said. I don't think that we need to be giving them funds just because in the future they may dry up. If they're there today, they're there today. That should not be a part of that request.
And so that's I'm glad you came back to that. That's the $642,068, right, over the previous year allocation. And the discussion with the library folks was that they don't know if they're going to have outside support in the future. My feeling is that they may or may not have that outside support in the future. Come talk to us if and when that happens. But my primary concern is that the outside sources were apparently supportive of the programming that the library is offering. We have not been given an opportunity to visit about the appropriateness or the scope of services provided to see whether or not that should be a county commissioner funded item or if that should continue to be outside sources that may feel more strongly about a particular service or area that the library offers to its patrons. I'm not making judgment on any of those programs, on any of those items, but I think that the approach to say this might not be available to us in the future also brings to the table the discussion of, well, what are those programs and are they more library focused in a more traditional sense, or are they kind of on the periphery? So I don't feel like we at this point should, as a prudent, as holding the purse strings, as local government, be signing on to that $642,068. That's part of a discussion over the course of the coming fiscal year. And maybe next year I'll look at it differently.
Well, one of the things I found there is they look into this pretty deeply, and they understand certain laws that I don't think we ever talk about that apply to federal laws that apply to libraries. And so when they talk about programs that may or may not be available, I think that's exactly what they mean, and they need the money to perpetuate them now. And so I just, when I hear them all speak about it and talk about it, they're knowledgeable people, and they want a good library. They want the best library that can be provided in Natrona County. And I think that's what we want to do. The $600,000 is a lot of money, and, that's the commission's choice as to what they want to do with that. I would give it to them, if it was up to me singly.
All right, so, I think there are at least 3 that are not in favor of the $642,068. So are there any other comments, questions, or concerns about that particular requested item? Are you guys wanting me to pause on this? or-
If you would, for just a second.
Okay. Commissioner Mellon.
Sorry, we're just trying to figure out the math, since we weren't given a request without some of this, that we've discussed, pulling it out. The budget request of $3.390964. If you drop the 2 million from that, that's 1.3. And then if you reduce that by those two amounts that has never been funded by the county in the past of $49,999 and then $60,531, we should have a total of approximately what they are actually requesting for, I think.
So you're gonna,
I need a calculator.
here, if you got one.
I got one.
So they've requested 5.390964 plus the 112,600 for the maintenance item, right? We take off the maintenance item. We take $2 million off the 5.390, right?
Right.
So you've got 3.390964. Then are you subtracting the 642,000 that so you kind of lost?
No. So if you'll see on the backside there, sir, you'll find a few comments of this and this amount, which have never been funded by the county before. And these are the funds that they're asking because they may not be available in the future. Take those off of what their requests are, it is that amount. And so, yeah.
What are you suggesting be the approved number?
Sorry, I'm trying to do the math real quick. Here's- If my math is right and my logic is correct, which is shady sometimes, it'd be $1,200,080,434.
One more time. 1280434. Okay, and how did you come up with that?
Hold on. Compare that to last year's request, which is way under last year's request. So I think I'm off somewhere.
No, you are off.
Yeah.
You are.
We know that.
No, I mean, you're off on your numbers.
Right. I need to rethink this.
So last year,
Last year was 2 million.
they requested 2.691. We increased that to 2.748896. And then they're requesting $642,000 more than that this year.
Right. But does that include items such as that 49,000, well, 50,000 plus the 60,000 that the county had never funded before?
Where are you seeing those numbers?
On the last page.
The far column, the third column number, says basic library expenses not previously funded by the county.
Okay, well, if you look at that total bottom, it's 722,000. So the 2.7 that we approved, that included the COLAs that we granted, so that is why the approval is more than what they requested. So you're saying is the services not previously funded by the county in their new 3.3 million request?
Right. So one, we don't do the 2 million. We don't do the maintenance. That goes back into Garrett's. This 50,000 and this 60,000 aren't funded by haven't ever been funded by the county. Why? So to make up the percentages per her narration have been previously covered by Natrona County School District and Joint Powers Board. Then the other one was funded by the city 1 cent funds. So they're asking us to cover funds that they're not saying aren't there. They're just saying they may not be there in the future. I don't see where we need to cover those. How this is laid out, that's why I'm getting the number I got, and it's just kind of confusing.
I think part of her argument was that this 3.39 number is the true cost of running the library. And some of these programs, she has not asked for funding from us for some of these programs. And as she's asking for a certain percentage of them now.
So the 3.3 does,
I think that was accurate, Ms. Clerk.
it's not including the 2 million ask?
Correct.
Okay.
The 2
That's
million
correct.
is above and beyond.
Above and
It's
beyond.
5.3. So, yeah, I guess you can approach it. Let us know when you've got the calculator figured out. You're working on yours too.
That's what 60.
Oh,
The 600,000.
If you have this additional, which is still above 682,689 plus last year's budget.
Correct.
That's what she can.
what's that percentage rate?
That's still about 35,000 above 339. So I don't know what-
Mr. Chairman, so the question I think I would have figure out these numbers is if you take last year's budget that was approved, that number plus the additional 642,068 that she's asking for, that comes up to the 3,390,964. What is all encompassed in that 642,068 is the question, because that does not match page.
So, gentlemen, what do you want to do? We can try to figure it out from this proposed distribution sheet. Again, it contains statements that this funding may not be available in the future, grant which is not guaranteed in the future. That's $110,000. Under programs and books and materials, you'll see that. It seems to me, based upon what you, Commissioner Millen, and you, Commissioner Friel, were saying, and what I was agreeing with, is that we're adding, for example, that $110,000 for items which may or may not be guaranteed in the future isn't consistent with our philosophy. So how do you want to proceed? Do you want to take that off, $110,000? Do you want to, I don't know that we have a whole lot of information on the other items, administration, physical plant, security, supplies, equipment, communications, that's $360,000.
Yeah, I guess I'm,
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that, I don't know, I mean, we obviously have another day to go through this, but I would ask that we get an answer to the question of what she's asking, that 642, whatever it is, what is that going to? And why does it not match this page back here? I think the increase to make it the 339, we need to know what's going into that amount.
right, and even if you take that 110 out, it's still, substantially over what we gave last year.
Yeah.
I'd like to see an annual, where's the year-by-year basis for a line item to see where things are going. It's hard to justify a increase of that much when we're asking everybody else to not, without adequate evidence or detail.
What it represents, Jim, is items that they put on there that are their expenses that they've never gotten from the county previously. That's what they are.
I don't know.
No, I know that's what they are, because they told me, but I can't find the list of them here in my sheet. It says the attached document, and I don't see an attached document to that April 24th letter. But that's dated 2023, but I think it meant to be 2024. Should I see if I can get her on the phone? She can tell us? No? Okay.
Well, we've eaten up a significant amount of time trying to speculate. I thought it was pretty clear that the $642,000 may dry up. It hasn't been requested from the county before. She's got a list of what these items are. This 722 plus the 2.7 does equal the 3.390. So I think it just comes down to the philosophy. Now, if you want her to come back and provide additional information on one or more of these items, I'm sure she'd be happy to do that. I don't feel we have a ton of time to do that kind of thing. And if we do that with her, are we going to need to do it with multiple departments? We haven't done that yet thus far. we haven't said, hey, why don't we go ask this person before we cut this other item? So I think that, you know, there's some potential issues with consistency, but, you know, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, everything up to this point has been, we've been able to figure it out. This one here, we can't. I mean, we're looking at it, at the number, and there's no rhyme or reason to the 642. Or to the last page, nothing is, so that's the only reason I would even say go back and ask her. I agree, I don't think we need to go back and ask anybody. We ask them to prepare a budget and bring it to us, but the others we've been able to figure out. This one here just does not make sense. And it's a 20% increase.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we necessarily need to ask her back for a question to answer. I'm just asking for, like, what Friel's saying is just something that I can compare and go back to and understand a little bit more of where the funds are, where they're going, why they increase from 2.7 to 3 point whatever. 3.
Commissioner Milne, why don't you reach out to Lisa and ask her your questions? And Commissioner Friel, if you want to do that, you two seem to be the most interested in, or
I'd say confused.
confused, okay, thank you, by this. So you guys can do that and then get back with us.
If Lisa's watching, which I'm sure she is, I'll reach out to you and whatnot, but yet it's we can have that discussion. If you can start maybe pulling some stuff together that from what you're hearing us talk about, that may help speed the process along a little bit.
Okay, we're on maintenance now.
You want to go building by building or?
Sure. Salaries? Any issues, concerns? Next page, Ag Building Cooperative Extension. How bad is the hallway carpet? It's $15,000. If that can be deferred, we could talk about whether we want to defer that. Items like the TLC cleaning and the janitorial and the trash, you know, there's certain things that we just don't have any control over, but some of these are discretionary. And that was the one that stood out on the Ag Extension Office.
The carpet does keep getting pushed, but we could probably push it one more year, I think.
Mr. Chairman, I think in talking with Garrett, it's pretty bad.
It is.
He did, and in his listings, he did prioritize them. I mean, I know there's only one on this one, but throughout the rest of his requests for buildings, he prioritized them.
Commissioner, do you want to leave that in? All right, we'll put in new carpet in the hallway. Courthouse building, that's this building. My thought is that we should reconsider the LED lights in this building. And I'm sure a lot of people don't want to hear me say that. And frankly, I'd love to have that upgrade, and I know that we'd save money from utilities. But we're going with we went with the high-end option of $137,000 from Summit Electric. My feeling is that we should push this off another year,
Push the lighting itself off.
not do the LED lights in this building. And with that, we had with controls. Anyway, the bells and whistles are on this Summit Electric. I would imagine that this proposal is competitive, but we only have one. And it might be an opportunity for Garrett to investigate with 2 additional bidders to let us know what their thoughts and what their number might be.
I'd note, Mr. Chairman, that it'd stay at 72,500 then for capital. The Summit bid was not included in that.
And Mr. Chairman, in speaking with Garrett, the carpet for the public defenders is the first priority. I guess it's in dire need as well.
What about legal?
The lawyers, they don't need carpet.
There's tile up there, isn't there?
So Commissioner Milne, are you just saying stick with the 72,500
Well, no,
and
I'm,
not add the 137?
correct. And then I'm questioning the legal department, carpeting, not the defenders, public defenders, the legal department. Can we push that for one more year?
They're not here to defend themselves, so I would say yes.
Outstanding.
They're gonna get even. They're probably listening too.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
speaking for the clerk's records room remodel, that's my records room. That's a want, not a immediate need at this time, so we could push that off.
Well, you got a trailer, so might as well.
I finally got a trailer after begging for how many years? A lot. I got tires too, so thank
We
you very
got
much.
tired, you wore us out.
Got tires?
I did.
So,
If that, I mean, if you were to need to take something out, for sure, that could be removed.
in lieu of or in addition to the legal department?
I'm not making that call.
Well, and I understand that, yeah, you see those folks a lot. I do too.
I need their help. sometimes.
Mr. Chairman, I
But-
would say our legal department needs to look spiffy. It really
That
does.
that did drop it down to 33,000 instead of us.
Keep the capital emergency repair
Yeah, we'll do public defender and do
capital.
the emergency repairs, but drop the legal department carpet and the Tracy's records room.
Thoughts?
We've been kicking the can so long,
I don't
so
blame
much of our maintenance. I just hate to do that too much longer on a lot of this stuff. so.
Well, just 15,000 and 18,000. 33,000.
It's not good.
Ready?
Wow.
Oh, it sucks. You see,
Yeah, it just did. So 15 plus 18 is 33. Yeah. Would be if everybody agrees.
I just don't see it, I just don't like to see us keep kicking some of these maintenance items down the road, because it's just, you know, part of the problem that we're in right now is because we have been doing that for so long. I think personally, if we can approve what Garrett's requested, or at least ask him to give us something specific and say which ones do you think can be move forward. I would feel more comfortable with that than us going through it and saying what we need to cut out. Well, I'd rather leave it up to Garrett than I had us, I guess is what it comes down to.
So now we want more information from this department on, I think our clerk indicated that this were Garrett's priorities.
That's correct.
From your discussions and preparation for this whole process. So Garrett would like to see all of these things, and so would we.
Yes.
And I think really the issue is we are making adjustments to salaries and wages. We are doing a number of capital projects. With one more year for some carpet is acceptable to me.
I'm not disagreeing,
I-
I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
And I know you're talking about
All I'm
kicking
just
the
saying
can,
is,
and I get that.
is let Garrett decide what he wants to kick the can down the road for the next year instead of us.
So just allocate a lower amount,
Huh?
allocate a lower amount than 72,000 and let him proceed? Is that what
Did you say you had a list of priorities, Tracy?
It's
These are
listed,
the-
it's
these are named.
prioritized on your list.
Right, so,
Public defender is first priority. Legal second, my room is third.
again, being up in legal and walking around, it's not like I'm tripping or falling over carpet that's coming up or anything like that I saw. But maybe.
The public defenders is pretty bad, Jim.
No,
That
this
one
is
we're
our
keeping
legal
in already.
department, not the public defenders.
I mean,
I'm good. Take those two out.
Okay, are you good with taking those two out?
take the two out.
I'm good with
Okay.
taking those two
That's
out,
fine.
but I
That-
understand
that-
what you're saying
That's
too.
fine.
I don't
No,
want to kick the
exactly.
can down the road for
Yeah.
others, too. But let's remove those two items. Legal department carpet and remodel of the clerk record room. So that reduces 39,500.
And on a better year, absolutely.
I'll be back begging for my room next year.
Well, you always gotta have some, so that we can tease you about.
Well, we're not going to get through all of these. But are there any questions, comments, or concerns on the health department? That's 30,000 for, there's basically no capital improvements. There's a capital emergency repairs item of 8,500. The rest is backflow testing and parts. Are we okay with that? All right, we're okay with that. Okay, library building maintenance, 163,000 was proposed for this.
Right. Now, he's talking about, there's a couple that are life safety and capital improvements. The exit lighting with backup, the boilers, the roof fan, right? But he was talking about potentially being able to maybe do one of the boiler replacements. And,
I think, and that'd be $57,000
right.
each.
And then the exit lighting with battery backup, that's a requirement. We gotta do that one at least, and that one isn't that much. The roof fan, that isn't too bad. It's the
drinking fountain, there are 4 drinking fountains, 7,500. Do you want to do 4 of those or 2 of those?
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, the roof fan lighting, the exit lighting, and the boiler replacement were all in the MOA
MOA,
report.
right?
Right. But I think that because of the redundancy, we could do one of the boiler units this year and do one down the road at some point.
That's what was discussed. The sidewalk replacement in Edgerton, I don't remember what he was talking about there. Jot it down.
Gentlemen, Michelle needs to prepare the room pretty quickly, so let's make a decision on this or not make a decision on this.
Subtract one boiler and push that to next year. Take care of the rest.
Yeah.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns about Commissioner Friel's proposal?
No, sounds good.
All right, so Tracy, from that, we'll take off the 57,500. All right, we're gonna stop there. We'll pick up on maintenance's Hall of Justice building request. What, next Monday?
Yep.
Next Monday. All right, I don't believe there are any other items on our work session agenda. So this meeting is adjourned.